We've all heard women scream in horror films. Still, we know that no one is really screaming. Why? Simply because an actress can't produce some sounds that convince us that something vile and heinous is happening. If you ever heard that tape, there is just no possible way that you'd not begin crying and trembling. I doubt you could listen to more than a full 60 seconds of it. These are the words of Roy Norris reflecting on the recording that he and Lawrence Bittaker made when they tortured and then murdered 16-year-old Lynette Ledford. I'm Laura. I'm here with my best friend Marina, and this is Grim.
NFL para todos neste dia de ação de graças, com uma semana de Game Pass por apenas R$ 4,99. Junte-se a nós e assista a todas as partidas, em um dia inteiro de futebol americano, com muitos touchdowns e tradições icônicas. Celebre o dia de ação de graças por apenas R$ 4,99. Assine agora em @dazon.com/NFL.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh.
I know.
I think actresses do scream, though.
I know. And funny enough, I had written this case after or before we had talked about this in our last case, because weren't we talking? It must have been why it was on my mind, saying that, we've never heard, hopefully, never heard the screaming, like real screaming.
Yes.
And it must have been because I had this on my mind.
Makes your blood run cold.
Yeah. I don't ever want to hear that.
Billy? I'm about to get naked, take a shower.
That was really good.
Anyways.
That just made me think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, though.
Oh, okay.
All
Okay,
right.
anyways, all right.
All right, starting off strong.
Woo woo.
Oh, get them ready.
Let's
get ready.
Can we jump right into Patreon shout
We're
outs?
going to jump right into them. Kiki T.
Kiki T.
Kiki T, we love you.
We love you so much. Thank you.
Savvy S.
Savvy S.
We love you, Savvy.
You're
Thank
so
you very
savvy
much.
by
You're
being
so
one of our
cool.
Patreons. We love you so much.
Be like Savvy. Kim M.
Kim M.
Kim, we love you. Thank you very much,
We love
Kim.
you so
We love you.
much.
Woo woo. I hadn't wooed, so I needed
The whistles
to
go woo woo.
Only in the morning. Marissa B.
Marissa B.
Woo.
We love you so much.
We love you, Marissa. Thank you. Doberman Diablo.
Doberman Diablo.
Diablo.
Woo, woo.
Woo, woo.
Are you
Love
sure
you.
that Diablo is not his last name?
It's one word. So,
Oh, Doberman Diablo is one
you
word?
gotta say it real fast.
We love you so much, Doberman Diablo.
We love you. Thank you. I thought your cat was one of your kids.
Nope.
Actually, I was ready to pause.
Nope.
Cheyenne L.
Cheyenne L.
we love you.
Woo, we love you so
we
much.
love you. Lori M.
Lori M. Thank you so Thank you so much, Lori M. We love you.
Joanna J.
Joanna J.
We love you, Joanna. Thank you so much.
Woo, woo, we love you.
We love you, Joanna. Stacia L.
Stacia
L.
Woo woo.
We love you.
We love you so much. Thank you.
Brianna M.
Brianna M.
Woo,
Woo woo. We love
Only
you
in
so
the morning.
We love you so much. By the way, if nobody knows what we're talking about, like please just let us know and we will post that video because
Yeah.
we grew up on it.
All you have to Google is the whistles go woo woo.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
You'll get it.
Me in the kitchen making breakfast or something.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh, so classic.
I know. It's so good.
Classic.
So good.
I saw the video Shoes the other day.
Let's get some shoes.
Somebody was that costume for Halloween, and I was like, that's brilliant. It was
I
spot
love
on.
it. So good.
Anyway, Abby H.
Abby H.
Abby.
We love
We
you
love
so
you, Abby.
much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes our Patreon shout outs
Thank
for
you.
today.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, everyone. We love
Really,
you guys
thank
so
you. We love
much.
it.
So
I
much.
still love that the comments are available now. That's not Patreon. Sorry, I switched to thinking
Oh,
about
it is Spotify, yes.
Spotify. I love the comments too. So keep those coming. We
Yes,
love
those
them.
are fun.
We love them. Okay. We're going to get into it. I will share my sources to start. So I watched a documentary, which is available on YouTube. You can check that out if you want to.
Out.
You can check it out. The Devil and the Death Penalty is what it was called.
Oh.
Yep. I also read a ton of articles, just lots of them. Lots of them. And I read other people's references of books that I chose not to read myself in a desperate attempt, and it is only one part, a desperate attempt to keep. I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And then I was like, nope, Laura, that is what happened last time. Yep.
I mean, books are good. We really like them.
They're so good, and there's so much information, but this is already hefty.
I know.
And I said I wouldn't do another multi-parter, so that's why I didn't read it. So there are lots of books you can go read about this, but I think I did a pretty good job.
It sounds hefty.
It's hefty. And then I know we don't always do trigger warnings because essentially our whole podcast is a trigger warning, but this one does have a lot of mention of sexual abuse. So just a warning getting into this.
Okay.
Shall we begin?
Yes. And I'm really glad that I got my voice back again. So I guess I'm just the one that's sick in perpetuity.
Yeah. Which is funny because I'm the one with the 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And
nobody else in my house was sick. So I got this one all on my own. Licking doorknobs.
Give it time though, because we're headed into the winter season and I think I will be singing a different tune poorly in a couple months.
Yeah. And I just got a massage today and my massage therapist was like, I was just sick. And I was like, well, I hope we had the same illness because if not, I'm going to get sick again.
Because your hands were all over me.
Yes.
All right. Oh, okay. That was fun. Now the serious stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Ruin my night.
I will. All right. Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker, quite a name, was born on September 27th, 1940 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His life was unfortunate from the start. His parents didn't want children, so shortly after he was born, they put him in an orphanage, which is really sad. He was adopted as an infant, but his adoptive father worked in aviation, which evidently caused the family to move around a lot. I don't know. That's a very vague thing that he worked in aviation. Like, was he flying?
He probably was a pilot?
I don't know. Oh,
or
why would they have to move a lot? I don't know.
Planes? I don't know.
It's probably in the book. It's probably in the book.
Yeah, okay.
Lacking stability and oversight, Lawrence got in trouble at a young age. He was just 12 years old when he was arrested for shoplifting. Having been released and sent back to school, he then dropped out of high school at 17. Despite his high IQ, he had an IQ of 138.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty high. His adoptive parents had disowned him at this time, and within a year of leaving school, he was arrested again, this time for car theft. He was put in prison at the California Youth Authority. This was the same organization that Ed Kemper was incarcerated through in 1963. They missed each other by just 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And you'll actually see a lot of similarities, I think, between the two, including the fact that Ed Kemper had a high IQ.
Oh.
If you recall.
We don't like them when they're smart.
No. Nope.
It's better when they're dumb.
Yes. After leaving CYA, he began a cycle of repeated imprisonments that spanned decades. Just days after his release, he was arrested for transporting a stolen vehicle across state lines and sentenced to 18 months at the Oklahoma State Reformatory, with part of the sentence served in Missouri. In 1960, once free again, it's starting early. It's okay, only the rest of the pages to go.
Yeah.
Once free again, he was arrested a few months later in LA for robbery and sentenced in May 1961 to 15 years. During his prison stay, he saw a psychiatrist who described him as highly manipulative and possessing considerable concealed hostility.
Ooh.
Combined with that IQ.
Yeah, so it probably has like borderline personality disorder.
For sure, yeah. Though originally sentenced, as I said, to 15 years, he was paroled after just 2 years.
What?
Mm-hmm. Only to return to prison in October 1964 for violating parole.
Okay, well, that math ain't mathin'. Like,
no.
You should serve at least 50% of a sentence.
That seems reasonable to me. Yeah. Now, at this point, it's almost like you read my notes. Prison psychiatrists assessed him again, this time labeling him a borderline psychopath.
Oh, man. Should have been a psychiatrist.
Yes, maybe you would have made different decisions here, though. Despite this, they prescribed medication and released him the following year. A month later, in July 1967, he was arrested once more for theft and leaving the scene of an accident. This time, he was sentenced to 5 years, and he was again released early. That was in April of 1970. By March 1971, he was back in custody for burglary, receiving a sentence of 6 months to 15 years. Now, he was released 3 years later at this point. Clear example of escalation, not being reformed.
Right.
I don't know why. It feels to me like they were kind of just I'm wondering if they were overpopulated or something. Like, I think they were trying to churn people out.
I guess. Or he was just somebody that was like flying under the radar somehow. But
Yeah.
it's, if you give someone a chance and you believe that they're reformed and you let them out early and then they immediately commit more crimes
Right.
and end up back in and like rinse and repeat.
Yep. But I wonder if he did what Kemper did, which is like Kemper like knew how to talk to them and convince everybody that he was fine and could get out.
Manipulate.
Yeah.
Okay, like fool me
don't know.
once, fine, but fool me 14 times, like
Back
I'm the
into prison.
asshole now. Yeah.
And it is honestly just a shame he couldn't be helped more. In 1974, he was at a grocery store and he tried to steal a steak.
Okay.
Fair. Gary Louie, an employee at the store, saw him do it and followed him out to the parking lot where he asked if Lawrence had forgotten to pay. Yeah, Marina's making a face correctly. Lawrence responded by stabbing Gary in the chest.
Yeah.
Lawrence tried to run away, but 2 other employees restrained him and called police. Gary fortunately survived. Lawrence's knife had missed his heart by millimeters.
Oh my God. Poor Gary didn't know what he was approaching.
Not at all. And that's why actually, right, employees are not supposed to approach people, shoplifters or anything.
You just shouldn't approach anybody anywhere ever. Like, especially.
Stay home.
Yeah. Don't talk to people. It's very dangerous out there.
It's true. Were you going to say especially something? I'm intrigued. You don't know.
Oh, no, especially like road rage.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
don't flip people off. Like, people.
I've gotten much better
it's
about
really bad.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
People are unhinged.
They're really scary. I had somebody weaving in and out of traffic today in front of me when I was on my way home. And that same thing. I think people would just ram into your car.
Yeah.
It's scary.
I've had people beep at me and throw me the bird. And I'm like, I actually am fully unaware of what I did other than just not drive 103. So
That's my favorite when they do something wrong and then they flip you off.
Why did you stop at a red light? Let me hit you doing 80.
Yes, exactly. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Gary fortunately survived. Lawrence. I already said that, but it's good to reiterate. Lawrence, therefore, was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon, landing him in California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo. And
That feels like it could have been attempted murder if you stab someone in the heart.
yeah. I don't know why that. I don't think.
He probably,
it was a crazy time.
It probably was a plea.
Maybe. Yeah. That was probably also in the book.
Okay. Sorry. You should have. Next time, can you read the 4 books? Because it's really.
Yes, I can. See, this is why I do, though, because I want to be able to answer every single one of those questions.
What was his shoe size?
Probably, I feel like it was a 12.
I was thinking 10 and a half. I don't know why.
That's small.
I know.
A big IQ and small shoes.
You know what they say about small feet.
You have a high IQ. All right, so it was at the California Men's Colony that he first crossed paths with Roy Norris. Roy Lewis Norris was born on February 5th, 1948 in Greenlee, Colorado. He too began life in unfortunate circumstances. He was conceived out of wedlock and his parents married when they found out they were pregnant. But Roy's mother was addicted to drugs and his father worked in a scrapyard. And for some reason, that sentence, I couldn't figure out another way to write it, but I didn't want to imply there's anything wrong with working in a scrapyard because I was like, his mother was on drugs and his father worked in a scrapyard. Anyway, his father was a mother. Right? Okay. I'll be here all week. So Roy bounced back and forth between living with them and foster care. More often than not, they didn't have enough money for food or clothing. Though he never reported it, it was also likely that Roy was sexually abused. Oh. And perhaps as a result of this, at 16, Roy came on to an older female family friend. She made him leave and then told his father. His father responded by saying he was going to beat him. So Roy stole his father's car, drove to the Rocky Mountains, and tried to commit suicide by injecting air into an artery.
Oh, God.
Which is a very specific way and also tells me this he had planned. You know, you're not like, let me just grab this needle.
Yeah, you don't just have that in your pocket.
Yeah.
Unless you're a drug addict.
I was going to say, fortunately, this didn't work, but I think it might not be fortunate when you hear the rest of the story. But it didn't work, so ultimately Roy returned home. A year later, he dropped out of school and joined the Navy, where he was stationed in San Diego in 1965 before deploying to Vietnam in 1969.
I'm sure that helped his mental health.
It really did, yeah. Mm-hmm. While he was in the military, he was evaluated by psychologists who determined he had schizoid personality disorder. And according to our Lord and Savior Wikipedia, This is characterized by a lack of interest in social relationships, a tendency towards solitary or sheltered lifestyle, secretiveness, emotional coldness, detachment, and apathy. Affected individuals may be unable to form intimate attachments to others and simultaneously possess a rich and elaborate but exclusively internal fantasy world.
Oh boy.
Other associated features include stilted speech, a lack of deriving enjoyment from most activities, and feeling as though one is an observer rather than a participant in life, among other things.
Oh, geez.
So great. We want him paired with Lawrence. This is good. As a result of this diagnosis, Roy was given an administrative discharge, which in contrast to, because I was like, what is an administrative discharge? This is like the electricity in the 1800s. Bear with me. It's only a little paragraph. I'll tell you what it is. In contrast to a punitive discharge, like a court-martial, generally it means that the service member is separated due to reasons unrelated to misconduct. So he didn't do anything wrong. They were just like, I don't think this is good for us. So for someone diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder, an administrative discharge likely reflects the military's assessment that this condition would interfere with that person's ability to perform their duties.
They're like,
that seems fair.
We can't give you guns.
Exactly. And in this case, when they get I lied, it's 2 paragraphs. The administrative discharge can be seen as the military's way of ensuring both the service members' well-being and the operational readiness of the unit. But it's not, it's considered a general or honorable discharge.
Okay.
So not dishonorable. I just I couldn't read the book, so I had to tell you some unnecessary information.
Thank you for that background.
You're welcome. Shortly after leaving the Navy, on the administrative discharge.
Got it.
Roy committed his first recorded offense. I say that because that's, like I said, the one that he actually got put in jail for, but I just wouldn't be surprised if he was responsible for some
the first
things
one he got
there.
caught for.
Exactly. Roy was arrested for rape and assault with attempt to commit rape as a result of 2 incidents.
Yikes.
Roy made bail and quickly followed through with some bad decisions. Evidently, he had been stalking a female student on the San Diego State University campus. In May 1970, he finally attacked her, saying nothing before hitting her abruptly on the back of the head with a rock repeatedly.
That's horrifying.
Awful. He just came up behind her. She had no idea what happened. When she fell to the ground, he held her down by kneeling on her back and then bashed her head again and again into the sidewalk.
She die?
No. She survived.
Holy shit.
And Roy also was charged with assault with a deadly weapon instead of murder.
Okay.
He was sent to serve 5 years at Atascadero State Hospital. Does that name sound at all familiar?
It sure does.
Yep. It's because it's the same state hospital for the criminally insane that Ed Kemper went to. They also just missed each other by a few years.
Wow.
Crazy. Small world. After 5 years, Roy was released from Atascadero, deemed not a danger to society, but again, like Kemper, that was patently wrong. Just 3 months later, just outside of LA, Roy was out riding his motorcycle and caught sight of a 27-year-old woman alone. He stopped alongside her and offered her a ride. When she politely declined, he jumped off his bike, grabbed the scarf she was wearing, and violently twisted it around her neck. He then dragged her behind some nearby bushes and raped her, discarding her afterwards and jumping back on his motorcycle.
Oh my gosh.
Amazingly, the victim was able to remember Roy's license plate and reported it to police. He was arrested and a year later convicted for the crime. It was this that landed him in the California men's colony alongside Lawrence. It took a year of Roy being at the prison before he and Lawrence really became pals. Lawrence might have been a bit standoffish because he thought Roy was too badass for him, but over time they got close, with Roy teaching Lawrence how to make jewelry.
Ooh, what kind of jewelry?
Also in the book.
Oh, okay. You know what's really fucked up, though? I bet you prison jewelry would sell like hotcakes. You know how people buy the art of like Charles Manson?
Yes.
I bet you if you were like, this is murder jewelry, people would be like,
you're right.
Look at this jewelry.
Yeah.
I'm also
and
picturing turquoise.
Probably. You buy it before it's murder jewelry and then it appreciates.
Oh, okay. So if they're pre-murderers.
Right. You get it at a discount.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Anyway, despite Lawrence's assessment that Roy was part of some serious gangs, Lawrence was the one to protect Roy when Roy was going to be attacked by other prisoners. Lawrence and Roy's friendship deepened, as all good friendships do, over a shared interest in sexual violence and misogyny.
How do you get on that topic?
I think that's all they probably talked about because Roy detailed his previous sexual offenses, telling an enthralled Lawrence about how he felt when he scared the young woman. Lawrence had not, at least allegedly, not committed the same crimes or, hadn't been caught for them. But told Roy that, I'm just going to flip words so that they make no sense.
Okay.
But told Roy that if he ever did rape a woman, he'd kill her afterwards.
Okay.
This piqued Roy's interest, and the two developed a new favorite hobby, describing increasingly disturbing fantasies about abducting, raping, and killing women.
That makes me want to take a shower because I can just picture them both being way too excited about this conversation.
Absolutely. And they had nothing else besides making jewelry to do.
Right.
Yeah. Gross. They were so excited by these fantasies that they came up with a pact for when they were released to each murder 7 teenage girls, one for each year from 13 to 19, and then meet back up.
The fuck?
Yeah. Lawrence was released first, joining the free world again. Fuck the free world. Again on October 15th.
I don't know what that's from.
8 Mile?
Oh,
what?
I mean, I've seen
Oh
8 Mile. Is that a famous quote from it?
Yes.
Okay. I know about the vomit on the sweater.
The one movie I know. Come on. Oh, man. Anyway.
You better lose yourself, okay?
Good job. Good job. Anyway, Lawrence was free on October 15th, 1978. Returning to LA, he worked as a machinist, and he actually made good money doing this. He also integrated himself into the community around him, with his neighbors describing him as generous and helpful, especially because he tended to share his relative wealth with some of the homeless people downtown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Came out of left field. Lawrence was also popular amongst the teenagers, which is kind of creepy and strange when you realize he was 38 at the time.
Don't like that.
No, he was buying them beer and weed and invited them to partake in his motel room. Roy was released exactly 3 months after Lawrence on January 15th, 1979. Slightly less cool than Lawrence, Roy moved back in with his mom. But that didn't stop him from quickly kicking off the homicidal plan that the two had hatched. Less than a month later, he raped a woman, though instead of killing her, he just left her out in the desert.
Oh.
Shortly after, he moved out of Mom's house to a place in Compton, working as an electrician. Somehow, Lawrence located him and the two met up, reigniting their enthusiasm. To start things off, they had to have the right transportation. A car would not do, so Lawrence bought a 1977 GMC Vandura, which was just missing free candy spray painted on the side.
Oh my God. Are there puppies in the van too?
You should go in and find out.
Have you seen that video of it's a comedian? I think it's a TikTok. Would you like more information?
Yes.
I think it's a TikTok video, and the kid's like, "Can I go to the park, Dad?" And he's like, "Okay, well, what if you see a van and it says free candy?" He's like, "I'm getting in. I want free candy." He's like, "No, you don't get in." And then he's like, "What about if there was puppies?" "Oh, I'm getting in for that."
Yes.
And he's like, "Okay, you can't go to the park." He's like, "Okay, fine. I just want to go find the van full of candy and puppies."
Yeah,
That's what
that
I
would
thought
be
of.
us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, but it would be wine and Celsius.
I'm getting in. I'm getting in the van.
All right. So, in this van, one side of the van had no windows. The other had a sliding door. And Lawrence was particularly excited about this because he figured he could pull up to a teenage girl and not have to open the doors all the way in order to yank her inside.
Oh my God, they got like a rape mobile.
Oh, they
It's
actually
so fucked up.
Rape Mobile was probably the runner-up, but they chose to call it Murder Mac. That was the name. They named it.
Okay.
Yep, they named it. I don't know where the Mac came from, but Murder Mac.
Okay.
It's all such a caricature that it's almost funny until you realize that this is like actual lives and real people.
Yeah.
In an approach, again, eerily similar to Ed Kemper, the two went on some practice runs. For the next 4 months, they picked up more than 20 female hitchhikers. Oh my God. Just like Kemper, they drove the girls to their requested locations, but through this, they learned the most effective ways of getting a young woman into the van, as well as identifying the most secluded stretches of road.
Wow.
It's so creepy to me. This is all in like literally the same area. And it's so creepy to think it was so dangerous for women to be out hitchhiking at this time. So one of the secluded stretches of road that they found was a fire road in the San Gabriel Mountains. It was gated off, but Lawrence broke the lock and replaced it with his own, guaranteeing that this road was theirs and theirs alone.
Oh.
Ugh, creeps me out. Lucinda Lynn Schaefer was born on July 9th, 1962 in Bexar County, Texas. Cindy, as she went by, spent the summer of 1979 with her grandparents in Torrance, California. Her grandmother described Cindy as warm and loving and said she loved to spend time playing guitar. On the evening of June 24th, 16-year-old Cindy was exercising some of her newfound teenage freedom. Her grandmother had dropped her off for a Christian youth meeting at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. The 5'4", 115-pound blue-eyed blonde was last seen walking back to her grandmother's house, wearing a white blouse with a black Mexican-style embroidery on it, dark blue jeans, and beige sandals. Sadly, this road happened to be one that Lawrence and Roy were canvassing that night. The sandals were the only evidence left behind, found on the side of the road.
Fuckers.
Lawrence and Roy had really prepared for their transition from practice to the real thing. They had constructed a bed in the back of the van and stowed tools, clothes, and a cooler, you gotta have some beer and soda, underneath it. They spent the day at the beach watching girls and drinking beer. Once the sun started to dip in the sky, they began cruising. At approximately 7:45, they pulled up next to Cindy and implemented their learned techniques. They tried to entice her to get into the van by offering some weed and a ride home, but she declined both. Not deterred, they drove up the road a little and pulled off onto the shoulder and waited for Cindy to walk by. As she did, they slid open the door and quickly grabbed her, dragging her kicking and screaming into Murder Mac and slamming the door shut.
That's awful.
A nightmare. That made me think, I got to do the levity because it's bad. I was thinking of the comment that somebody left that your Fall Out Boy reference was when you were saying it's an American Nightmare.
It's the lesser known version of American Psycho. I'm an American Nightmare.
Thank you. Okay, now that I feel better.
Okay.
To drown out the screaming, Lawrence put the radio on full blast while Roy tied up the poor girl's arms and legs and covered her mouth with duct tape. I can't imagine what was going through Cindy's mind while Lawrence drove them to that abandoned fire road, but he later described her as having a magnificent state of self-control and composed acceptance of the conditions over which she had no control. She shed no tears, offered no resistance, and expressed no great concern for her safety. I guess she knew it was coming. And my heart just breaks hearing him say that because she must have just been in complete shock and terrified.
Right.
So it's not that she didn't have concern over her safety. She was just, she's 16 and
she
just
froze.
was abducted by two men.
Yeah. I just was thinking, I wish she, obviously hindsight, but I wish she had realized that, if somebody stopped and tried to lure you into a van and you were like, no, I'm good. And then you saw that van parked, I would never walk by it again.
I don't know. Is it that things weren't reported as much and people didn't talk as much and weren't aware of what was happening? Did you just genuinely not realize what kind of danger was out there? Was she and were other people just so sheltered they didn't know?
I don't even think it's sheltered. It's just we have the bad news flashlight at our fingertips. We get every alert for every abduction and murder and sighting and assault and use of a gun across the entire country. Yeah. You didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly what I said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, but
with
really, I think it's just
words.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, one might resonate, but yeah, that was a long time ago. We won't say how long, but yeah. Anyway, okay.
I think it was 20 years, right? 1970.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, maybe 25.
Actually, no, it was like 1994, right? It
was
still 20 years.
Are you being sarcastic?
No.
Oh, because 1975, this was 79.
Well, no, I was being sarcastic, but then I was like, wait, I think this is occurring in 1994. So I would have said like 40 years ago.
No, this is happening in 1979.
I thought one of them got out of prison in 1994.
Nope. No.
Where did I get 1994 from?
No, there's nothing in the 90s here.
Okay.
Nope. Let's see what I might have.
Okay, there's my joke.
1964.
No.
Maybe.
No.
Yeah. No, this was 1979.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
it was the summer of 79.
It was 20 years ago.
That's okay.
Anyways.
We good? Everybody up to speed? Everyone moving along?
Yep. I'm here now. I'm with you.
When they arrived at their destination, both men took turns raping the young girl, with one of them giving the other privacy while they completed their act. They did this exchange several times. One of the times Cindy was left with Roy, she asked him if they were going to kill her. Although he said no, saying they'd even pay her and going so far as to write his name and address on a piece of paper, she asked if they would allow her to pray before they did.
Oh.
Sadly, Cindy was not granted even this 1 ounce of humanity. Despite her plea, Lawrence came up behind her and lifted her up off the ground so she couldn't get any traction, allowing Roy to begin to strangle her. As we've heard before in First-Time Murders, Roy was surprised how difficult it was, and after trying for less than a minute, he stopped and went to throw up, saying he was disturbed at the look in her eyes. Lawrence took over, strangling Cindy until she fell to the ground, convulsing. He consulted the toolbox under the bed and chose a wire coat hanger, which he twisted around her neck, pulling until she stopped moving. They wrapped her body in a plastic shower curtain and then threw it carelessly over a steep canyon, believing that animals would take care of the evidence.
I'm so disturbed.
And again, I didn't even realize this when I was writing it, but really similar parallels to Ed Kemper, who threw the body parts.
Yes.
Wait, yeah. Well, that was Kemper, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. After a successful debut, the two waited less than 2 weeks to do it again. Andrea Joy Hall was born on October 21st, 1960, not 94. Another blue-eyed blonde, she grew up in Akron, Ohio, but just moved to LA before she was 18. It was a tough go. She didn't have a job, and she got enough money to live on by donating blood, which was very creative, but seems like it would be draining.
Also, no thank you.
No, yeah. No, it's Marina's
hard pass.
Marina's worst nightmare.
I'll go live on Skid Row, thanks.
On July 8th, 1979, the 5'7", 140-pound teen was returning home after a day at the beach. Dressed in her one-piece burgundy bathing suit with blue terry cloth shorts, she stuck her thumb out for a hitch along the Pacific Coast Highway. Lawrence and Roy spotted her and immediately knew they wanted her as their next victim. But before they could pick her up, another car slowed and Andrea got in. Frustrated, the pair followed this car until she got out again at Redondo Beach. Lawrence pulled up while Roy hid in the back. It was less intimidating to get in a car with one man than two, and offered Andrea a drink from the cooler. She accepted, and when they walked to the back of the van, Roy jumped out and grabbed her. She fought like hell, but the men overpowered her. Like they had with Cindy, they tied up her wrists and ankles and gagged her. They drove to the same abandoned fire road and raped her. Lawrence was first, then Roy, then Lawrence decided he wanted to go again. As Lawrence was assaulting Andrea, Roy thought he saw headlights. Lawrence quickly dragged Andrea into the bushes to hide her while Roy took the van to drive around and look for a vehicle. He didn't find one, but the men were spooked, so they decided to go further up the road. Instead of letting the abused girl ride in the van, they made Andrea walk along the road naked.
Oh my God.
Once they parked again, Lawrence made her perform oral sex, and then they took pictures of her. Not finished, they decided to refill their beer, so Roy went to the store while Lawrence stayed and continued to take pictures of Andrea, some of which showed her face and the sheer terror she was in as she begged for her life. It was a game to Lawrence, who told Roy that he'd captured those images because he'd told Andrea that they were going to kill her and to give him as many reasons as she could come up with to convince them not to.
That makes me sick to my stomach.
Fucked up. Super fucked up. Andrea continued to beg that they spare her life as Lawrence went to the toolbox under the bed. He selected an ice pick and promptly thrust it through her ear and into her brain. I hope this killed her instantly because he yanked it out and then flipped her limp body over and did the same in her other ear, stomping on the handle until it broke.
Oh my God.
Despite it being completely unnecessary, he then strangled her. The two disposed of her body the same as Cindy's, throwing it off a cliff.
I don't have words
You're
for our
verklempt?
podcast. Yeah.
Oh, I've done to you what you always do to me.
Yes.
Yeah. It's super fucked up. It is like someone would create a horror movie and think of these things, but he is doing this in real life.
Shoving an ice pick in your ear.
Yep.
That's fucked up.
Yep. A couple of pros now. It was another month and a half before they struck again. Now, I tell you, the 70s are wild. We know hitchhiking was the norm, but it's so hard for me to imagine, even then, allowing a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old to get rides from strangers.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that they like explicitly, the parents weren't like, please go get rides from strangers,
Right.
but they knew that they didn't have transportation. I think they thought they were going to take the bus, but it was just hitchhiking was just so common. So that is what the parents of Jackie Doris Gilliam and Jackie Leah Lamp did. It's frustrating to me that with these cases, it's difficult to find information about the victims. It's often you find I have a whole story about the childhood of Lawrence.
Right.
And unfortunately, all I know about these young women are their birth dates. Jackie Gilliam was born on March 17th, 1964 in Wisconsin, and Leah Lamp, she went by her middle name, was born on October 18th, 1965 in California. On September 3rd, 1979, the girls had been making their way down the Pacific Coast Highway and had taken a break at a bus stop. This is where Lawrence and Roy spotted them. They pulled up their van and offered them a ride, which tragically they accepted. The girls were impressively observant, just too late. They noticed that Lawrence was driving away from the PCH and towards the San Gabriel Mountains. Again, in an eerie parallel to Kemper, when they protested, Lauren and Roy just tried to make excuses, but the girls weren't having it. When Leah, this is the 13-year-old, tried to open the door, Roy hit her on the back of the head with a bag filled with lead weights.
Oh.
While she was unconscious, he grabbed Jackie to bind and gag her. Leah woke up and again tried to get out of the van. God bless this sweet child. Like, can you, I don't know. I just can't imagine waking up and like still trying to get out of the van. But Roy grabbed her and dragged her back in. Lawrence was worried someone would see what was happening, so he pulled over and jumped in the back to help Roy. Lawrence punched Jackie in the face, and the two men again easily overpowered them. With the girls subdued, Lawrence got back behind the wheel and continued driving to the fire road. There, like the victims before them, they were raped repeatedly, but sadly, unlike the others, this would go on for nearly 2 days.
Oh, that is awful.
Yeah.
And
babies. They're babies.
I know.
13.
And I want to think that they kept fighting, but I feel like they would break you.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing they didn't really feed them or give them any, you know what I mean?
Right. You're dehydrated and exhausted.
I'm sure that was in the book, whether or not they did, but it was awful. And the whole time, so not only were they being raped and assaulted repeatedly, but the men took pictures, and this time they now graduated to recording their rapes on a tape recorder. Lawrence had taken a particular liking to Jackie, the 15-year-old, who he told to pretend they were cousins, which is pretty fucked up.
Okay.
And be vocal about her pain.
Oh.
And he made sure she felt pain by using another ice pick to stab at her chest and vice grip pliers to tear off part of one of her nipples.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Like torture. And like when I say stab at her chest, like he wasn't killing her. Like he was putting her
making
in pain.
holes in her. Yes.
Ugh. When the men decided they were done, they attacked Jackie first. Like he had with Andrea, Lawrence struck Jackie in each ear with the ice pick and then strangled her. During this horrific murder, Roy had been holding Leah in the van, which reminded me of, I can't remember the
Finney's
girls.
really upset about it
I'm
as well.
trying to ignore him. But the girls who was in the car, oh my God, was it Night Stalker? Now this is awful that I don't remember, but the one friend who was in the back of the car and the other was in the trunk.
Wasn't that Ed Kemper?
Was it? I think so. Was it his first murder, right?
I think it was still
Ed.
Ed.
But she was literally listening to her friend being murdered, and that's what I imagine Leah being held in the van by Roy while Jackie's being murdered. After Jackie died, Roy took Leah out and hit her on the head with a sledgehammer.
Oh my God.
And then strangled her. He thought he killed her, but really she had just been unconscious from the sledgehammer, so he was surprised when she opened her eyes. He bludgeoned her again with the sledgehammer, and then Lawrence stepped in to help, strangling her until she finally died. And once again, they threw their victims' bodies off a cliff. Shirley Lynette Ledford was born on March 4th, 1963. It was Halloween night, 1979. 16-year-old Lynette, as she was called, had gone to a party at a house just outside of LA and was hitchhiking home. Of all times to hitchhike home.
On Halloween.
Halloween does not feel like the right night.
No.
She was looking for rides at a gas station, and she was relieved when she saw a familiar face pull up. She recognized Lawrence, who often went to the McDonald's that Lynette worked at. Lawrence and Roy easily got Lynette into the van, offering her a ride home and some weed. But they soon pulled off onto a secluded street, and Roy pulled out a knife, tying up and gagging a frightened and shocked Lynette. In a deviation from their previous escapades, Roy took the wheel and Lawrence went in the back with Lynette. And I think there was probably something personal there because he must have recognized her too. So,
Right.
He took the tape off her mouth and freed her arms and legs, initially slapping and mocking her, then beating her with his fists as he repeatedly shouted for her to say something. As Lynette began screaming, he shouted for her to scream louder. As she continued screaming, Lawrence began asking her as he struck her, "What's the matter? You don't like to scream?" Lynette began to cry and pleaded with Lawrence, repeatedly saying, "No, don't touch me." In response, Lawrence again ordered her to scream as loud as she wished, and then began alternately striking her with a hammer, beating her breasts with his fists, and torturing her with pliers, which he also used when he raped and sodomized her.
Jesus Christ.
Inspired by the previous torture of Jackie and Leah that he'd captured on tape, Lawrence began recording Lynette's nightmare. On the recording, which was later played for a jury, spoiler alert, Lynette can be heard pleading for the abuse to cease and making statements such as, "Oh no," with sounds of Lawrence getting something metal, maybe the sledgehammer or pliers from the toolbox. You could actually hear that on the recording.
And that whole jury needed therapy.
For sure. We'll get to that, but yes. Roy later described hearing screams, constant screams, emanating from the rear of the van as he drove. I remember he was the one who commented on the in my intro. Once Lawrence had his fill, only two heads, the men switched places again. Roy also used the tape recorder and can be heard shouting at Lynette to go ahead and scream or I'll make you scream. In response, Lynette pleaded, "I'll scream if you stop hitting me," and then emitted several high-pitched screams as Roy told her to continue until he ordered her to stop.
Oh my God.
Back in the van, Roy reached for the sledgehammer as Lynette, seeing him do this, screamed no, and then Roy struck Lynette once on the left elbow in response, which, by the way, hitting that, I kind of read that casually, but
with
being
a sledgehammer
hit on an elbow, yeah, that would hurt.
It's not funny.
No. That was good. Thank you. I needed that.
You're welcome.
In response, she informed Roy that he had broken her elbow before pleading, "Don't hit me again." Roy again raised the sledgehammer, and as Lynette repeatedly screamed no, and then Roy proceeded to strike Lynette 25 consecutive times on the same elbow with the sledgehammer.
Wow.
Before asking her, "What are you sniveling about?" as Lynette continuously screamed. And
These
wept.
guys are so fucked up.
Absolutely fucked up. After approximately 2 hours of this torture, the men decided they were done. They pulled over, and it was Roy who killed Lynette by strangling her with a wire coat hanger, which he tightened with pliers, like Lawrence had done to their first victim, Cindy. Roy later said that Lynette didn't react much to the act of strangulation, although she died with her eyes open.
I hate that.
In another deviation from their previous murders, instead of throwing Lynette's body off a cliff, Lawrence opted to discard it on a random lawn in order to get a reaction from the press. The pair drove to a randomly selected house in Sunland, where Roy discarded Lynette's nude body in a bed of ivy on the front lawn.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look out my window. You ever
Your
look-
window without the curtains?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Every window in my house
is
without
your husband
curtains.
out there?
No. But, I'll look out my back window at like my pool and I'll see something floating on the top. I'm like, what is that? Is that, one time it was a bird, but normally it's like a leaf or something,
Yep.
or you look out and you're like,
Yep.
what is that? Is that a
Yep.
body? And you're like, no, it's a trash bag. No, it's literally a dead
No, it's
naked body on your lawn.
It was not the people who were in the house that saw it. It was actually a jogger the next morning.
Oh, see, that's
saw
what you
her
get
body.
for jogging.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
The
what you
early
get.
bird gets the body.
I saw something that said that you should run a mile every morning because then you know your day can't ever get any worse.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I'm blown away by that.
But
idea.
that's what you get for jogging. You
Yeah.
discover dead bodies.
Yes.
Wow.
So this jogger obviously immediately reported it to the police. Investigators were shocked at the state of Lynette's body. It was clear that the poor woman had been tortured, An autopsy revealed what we already know, that she had died of strangulation, but the hours leading up to her death were horrible. She had been beaten, having experienced extensive blunt force trauma to her face, head, breasts, as we said, the left elbow, causing multiple fractures. Her left hand had a puncture wound, and her right hand had been slashed. She had not just been sexually assaulted, but violently torn as a result of Lawrence inserting pliers into her vagina and rectum.
Oh.
Incredibly, the wire coat hanger that Roy had used to strangle her had been tightened around her neck to the size of a silver dollar, which is an inch across, maybe.
My God.
Yeah. Police, of course, wanted to find the person or people responsible for this horrific crime as quickly as possible. Fortunately for them, and thanks to another case of killer ego, they wouldn't have to wait long. Because remember, we were talking about they just can't help themselves. They just brag. So that same month, Roy started hanging out again with a man named Joseph Jackson, whom he'd met when they were both in jail. Like we discussed in the last case, I literally already said the sentence, Roy couldn't help himself. Not only did he tell Joseph about torturing and killing Lynette, he also bragged about the other 4 victims that he and Lawrence had abducted and killed that year. But Roy and Lawrence hadn't limited their fun to just homicide. Roy told Joseph about several more incidents where the pair had abducted and sexually assaulted young girls, ultimately releasing them. One such scenario occurred on September 30th, just a month before Lynette's body was found. On this night, Lawrence and Roy had seen a young woman named Robin Robeck and decided they had to have her. They pulled up to her in their van and sprayed mace in her face. Then they easily pulled her into the van, bound her, and raped her. Confident she couldn't identify them because of the mace in her eyes, they released her. Joseph, upon hearing the story, was like, fuck this, and went and talked to his lawyer, who was like, fuck this, tell the police.
Good.
Detective Paul Bynum of the Hermosa Beach Police was assigned to the case. He was able to match the descriptions of the alleged victims to those of several missing persons cases in the area from the same time period. But the thing that ended up being the link was the description of the van, Murder Mac. It was the same description as Robin, so the person who got maced, had given to the police the month before. Detective Bynum contacted Robin and brought her in to hopefully identify Lawrence and Roy from a lineup of mugshots. She had no trouble doing so, and officers immediately went out to find the pair. They were quickly located and put under surveillance. It took just a couple of days for them to observe Roy selling weed, which was an arrestable offense, and Lawrence in possession of weed, which is a violation of his parole. So both men were arrested on November 20th, 1979. And I just have to compliment, that was a month and a half after all of this happened. So
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Thank God he opened his mouth.
Yeah. Which one? The Roy talking to Joseph. I thought you meant
and Joseph telling.
Yeah, exactly.
Good job, everyone.
Everyone did a good job.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. So investigators brought Robin back in now to make an identification in a real lineup in person, but she was unable to do so. Still, they had enough to get search warrants for the van and each of their apartments. In Lawrence's, they found Polaroids of Andrea Hall and Jackie Gilliam, 2 of the deceased victims. There were also bottles of different kinds of acid, and Lawrence later told investigators that he and Roy had planned to use these on their next victim. So they were really going, not just killing people. I think he was getting into the torture.
Oh, God. Wasn't it Jeffrey Dahmer that drilled holes in his victims' heads and poured acid in them?
Oh, probably.
To try to reanimate them?
Blech. Remember the acid bath killer? Ugh. Yeah.
Don't enjoy acid.
No. In Roy's apartment, they found a bracelet that had belonged to Lynette and more Polaroids. All in all, between the 2 apartments, police found nearly 500 pictures of
Holy
victims,
shit.
Some voyeurism, some abduction, some dead, and some alive.
Just as an aside, that's a lot of money worth of film in the 70s, isn't it?
I don't know how much Polaroids were, but yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they were doing this for a long time.
That's the most irrelevant fact, but it just popped in. I had to say it.
Also, probably in the book was the cost of the photos,
if
I were to guess.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm really sorry I didn't get the cost of the Polaroids, but I did get you the description of an administrative discharge. So
you did. So you were really focused in on the key.
The right things.
We're both really honing in on the key facts in this case here.
Yep. Okay, so in the van, they found the sledgehammer, a plastic bag filled with lead weights, a jar of Vaseline, gross.
Yeah.
2 necklaces, later confirmed to belong to 2 of the victims, and a book detailing how to locate police radio frequencies, which obviously didn't actually help them.
No.
But lastly, they discovered the tape recorder that held the disturbing evidence of Lynette's assault. Oh. I can't even believe this. Her poor mother was the one to positively identify her voice. Oh. That is genuinely incomprehensible.
It gives me the chills.
Yeah. Meanwhile, proceedings were underway for Robin's rape. On November 30th, 1979, Roy was on the stand during a preliminary hearing, and I don't understand enough about all this to know why they were sharing evidence about the murders at this point, because this was for Robin's assault. I don't know if it was, what is that phrase when it's like you show that they would be capable of that?
It's to show like, well, not the modus operandi.
There was another phrase about
it's like to show the character.
Yeah, something like that.
Because
so
they don't have the positive ID, but they have enough evidence on the murder. So
yep. Okay.
I can't think of the actual.
I know there was a fancy
right
phrase you gave me. Either way, despite having previously denied any involvement in anything, when prosecutors confronted him with all of the evidence, Roy broke. Roy told his horrified audience in what Detective Bynum called a casual, unconcerned manner the details of what he and Lawrence had been up to since being released from prison. Because they basically were like, look at all the evidence we have. And he was like, you don't say. Let me just tell you everything that happened.
Oh my God. It's like in Allison Boda's, where he was like, oh fuck, I might as well just confess to everything now.
Exactly what he did. So this confession, of course, was sufficient to enable prosecutors to pursue 5 charges of first-degree murder for both men.
Good.
Additionally, Roy agreed to bring investigators to the San Gabriel Mountains and show them the fire road that he and Lawrence had parked at, as well as the places they discarded the bodies. Sadly, neither Lucinda's nor Andrea's bodies were found, perhaps due to the fact that they were the first to be killed, but I don't know. On February 9th, 1980, they did locate Jackie and Leah's bodies. An ice pick was still lodged in Jackie's skull.
Ugh.
Leah's skull had visible indentations from the sledgehammer.
Oh my God, yeah.
Roy and Lawrence were finally arrested for the murders of all 5 girls. Lawrence was denied bail. Roy's was set at $10,000. Unsurprising, given his relatively easy confession, Roy immediately agreed to testify against Lawrence in exchange for a plea.
Yeah, to not get the death penalty, right?
It's exactly what he was after. Yep. So on March 18th, 1980, Roy pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, 2 counts of rape, and 1 count of robbery. On May 7th, Roy was sentenced to 45 years to life to be eligible for parole in 2010. Lawrence's trial began on January 19th, 1981. He was facing 29 charges of kidnapping, rape, sodomy, and a little thing called murder. Mm-hmm. Frustratingly, the charges for Robin's rape had been dropped because of a lack of evidence, including her inability to identify Lawrence and Roy in a lineup. Grim fact, Lawrence's trial was the first in California that allowed TV cameras inside the courtroom.
Oh.
Of course, Roy was the star witness for the prosecution in Lawrence's trial, and he delivered. He shared details from how they met in prison, to hatching their plan, to enacting it. He walked them through each of the 5 murders, as well as Robin's rape and 2 other abduction and assaults. He was just like, let me tell you every single detail. Once he was through, several other witnesses came forward to testify that Lawrence had shown them pictures of their victims, referring to one picture of Jackie and saying, "The girls I get won't talk anymore." Lawrence's lawyer's defense was essentially that Roy had been the ringleader, bringing in witnesses that testified to Roy's desire to abduct and murder young girls. While legitimate, none of this could hold a candle to the prosecution's slam dunk, which was the full 17-minute recording of Lynette's torture. Everyone but Lawrence listened in horror, with many people crying or burying their faces in their hands. Lawrence, on the other hand, had a smile on his face.
Oh God, I genuinely can't imagine being in that courtroom for that.
In the documentary I mentioned, which was The Devil and the Death Penalty, and you could just find it on YouTube, there's video of people literally running out of the courtroom and like pale as a ghost. Just, I can't even, it's unfathomable.
See, I watched horror movies where they have not even real tapes.
Right.
But it has that gritty quality
Yes.
to it, and
Yep.
it's quiet, and
Yep.
you can just, it's like you're putting yourself there. And
That's why I started with Roy's clip or comment, of like, that you can't even fathom the sound of it, because I'm thankful that I can't.
Yes,
and
correct.
Yeah, it's just awful. Lawrence did take the stand. Nothing really notable there. He just lied through his teeth about his involvement. The prosecutor had said he was worried at cross because Lawrence had the 138 IQ, but he later said he had a high IQ but no common sense.
Oh, yeah, that
And
happens.
Fortunately, the jury didn't buy it. On February 17th, 1981, after 3 days of deliberation, Lawrence was found guilty on all 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, 5 charges of kidnapping, 9 charges of rape, 2 charges of forcible oral copulation, 1 charge of sodomy, and 3 charges of unlawful possession of a firearm.
I was going to say that that's a very long deliberation when you had that full confession,
Yep.
but they had to go through each of the charges and
Yep.
make sure that there was sufficient evidence to establish that. So they did their due diligence.
I appreciate you saying that, because I was like, what was it? What did I say? 3 days?
3 days.
Yeah, which seemed like a lot, but then you realize
all
it's like
those charges.
Yeah,
So
okay,
if
fine.
they're reviewing the evidence to
Yep.
say, okay, the state is charging with 3 counts of oral copulation. Who? When was that? And then you're
Jeez.
combing. You
Yeah.
know, if they're doing their job instead of like, well, this guy's fucking guilty. Let's
Right.
just give him everything they asked for.
They did essentially do that at the sentencing hearing.
Okay.
So his sentencing hearing was set 2 days later, and deliberations were
Shit.
just 90 minutes this time.
That's a quick turnaround.
Recommending
Oh, for the death penalty.
Yep,
Yeah, okay.
recommending the death penalty. And indeed, on March 24th, Lawrence was formally sentenced to death. Additionally, love this judge, he imposed as an alternative sentence in the event that the death sentence was repealed of 199 years.
That'll do it.
So I love that. Now, of course, Lawrence appealed, but the case was dismissed, and it actually took 8 years. It said it was dismissed 8 years later. Is that why was it? Do you think it's just like all the appeals taking time
Death
or
penalty
something?
cases take
Okay,
forever.
interesting.
The
So,
briefs are
they really long? A lot of pages.
Yes, didn't I tell you that one of the ones I pulled up in the case that I just covered, it was like 700 pages.
Yeah, and you didn't say it on the podcast.
I did
You
forget.
deprived our gremlins of the page count.
One night when I couldn't fall asleep, I remembered that I didn't tell you the pages.
You read all
No,
700 pages.
No, but
that helped you fall asleep.
Definitely would have put me to
Yep,
sleep.
Yep. Okay, so he appealed his execution date. Once it was dismissed, his execution date was set for December 29th, 1989. He then appealed to the Supreme Court, inadvertently delaying the date because it just takes time.
Yep.
But the decision was upheld, and a new date was set for July 23rd, 1991. He appealed again and was granted a stay of execution. I don't know why. Do they just do that? I don't.
While the appeal, they stay the execution while the appeal is pending.
Oh, okay.
Because
okay.
you can't kill him and then be like, oh, you know what? He shouldn't have had the death penalty. Oops.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
It ultimately didn't matter. He died on death row on December 13th, 2019. As for
that's
Roy,
recent.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, which, I mean, this all happened, at least he was incarcerated for basically all of this. But
Right.
As for Roy, when the time came for his parole hearing, strangely, he declined to attend, which meant, so this was like 2010, which meant automatic deferral of his eligibility for another 10 years.
Good.
He was denied parole again in 2019, and he too died in prison on February 24th, 2020.
Good, because those are not two individuals that I would
No.
want to ever put out on parole.
It is good, but the prosecutor on Lawrence's case, Stephen Kay, he also worked on the Manson murders, fun fact, grim fact, and he actually said this case was worse. So, because his argument was basically these were young, innocent girls that literally did nothing, not that anyone deserved to die.
Right.
But he said the comparison was just horrendous.
Awful.
He reflected on the men's death and said of Lawrence, "I'm upset that he beat the system. He died a natural death, something his victims didn't have a chance for." Ooh, it gave me goosebumps again. He was not the only one affected by this case. Sadly, in December 1987, Detective Bynum committed suicide, specifically noting this case as a reason in his 10-page suicide note.
That's awful.
That made me sad.
That's awful.
The recording of Lynette's murder has never been released to the public, thank God.
Yeah,
nor
really.
should it be. But it is used in the FBI Academy for training and desensitization.
Oh, wow.
Stevens, the prosecutor, said the tape is the most awful thing he's ever heard. It just reaches down inside you and pulls out out your insides listening to a 16-year-old getting tortured. It's just so haunting.
Oh my God.
And that is the case of Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris.
This was really fucked up.
It was that was why I gave the warning in the beginning, because it is very fucked up. And it's fucked up in a just like one of those, why are they doing that to people? Just don't do that to people. You know, it's not like you got caught up in things and then something escalated. Like you went out and literally made a torture van.
Right. It's really, it's really hard for my brain to comprehend that people like that can exist.
Yeah. When what was it? I forget which, I don't remember what awful shooting it was, but I remember asking my dad, like, why would that happen? Why would somebody do that? And he said, there's just things you can't explain. Like there are some people who are just evil.
They're evil and they're sick.
Yeah. And that is how I feel about these men who fortunately are no longer on this earth. But I do agree with Stephen's comment that it's just frustrating that they got to die natural deaths and their victims didn't. So,
right.
And they were so young, those girls.
Oh, I know.
So young.
That's awful. Awful.
Oh man. Okay.
Don't hitchhike. It's not really a thing anymore.
Please,
but like,
God,
don't.
Yeah.
There was somebody in town.
No way.
I was driving up the street and there was an old man.
Okay, well
who stuck his thumb out.
He was around in the 70s so he's still doing the 70s hitchhiking.
No.
Yeah, he's fine. He'll be fine. Roy and Lawrence were not looking for him.
Okay, I'm worried more about me. Picking up the hitchhiker.
Yeah, I think that's actually the more of the issue now. I think it's that versus the other way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Stay safe, people.
Don't pick people up.
Don't do that.
What
did we say at the beginning of this? We said at the beginning of this podcast, today's episode, we said, stay home.
Yes,
don't go
stay
anywhere.
Home. It's way too people-y out there.
Yeah, don't.
It is dangerous.
Don't do it.
Just if you see someone that needs a ride, you call them an Uber and you tell them, say my name.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Great callback.
Yeah.
I wish I knew that episode number off the top of my head, but go listen to it. Sammy? Right?
It is Sammy, but isn't it a Peabody?
Oh, is it?
No, is it?
I don't know.
It might be a Peabody.
You all know better than we do.
You know our episodes better than we do, for sure.
We're lucky if we remember anything.
Yes.
Our names. As I say, we have no memories. We're illiterate. It's
colander brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying listening to Grimm,
I'm not.
Make sure you're getting the most in between episodes. You can subscribe to our Patreon by searching Grimm, a true crime podcast, on the Patreon app or website. Depending on the tier you choose, you'll get a shout out like you heard at the beginning of this episode, access to monthly bonus episodes, and sneak preview that we are doing. I'm covering the Delphi murders update in our November Peabody. So hope you're excited about it.
Very exciting.
Or if you join the top tier, you get to join our Discord server where we talk about all these things and it's awesome.
And we also share pictures of animals.
We do lots of pet pictures.
Everybody loves pets.
If you don't want that kind of commitment, no judgment here. We're also now on Buy Me a Coffee. Visit buymeacoffee.com/Grimm, a true crime. Nope, just Grimm Crime Podcast. Sorry. Mm-hmm. And thank you very much to those who have already. You can contribute a one-time amount of your choosing, and we're still doing the stickers, right?
Yes.
For the first 200 people who buy us a coffee. This is not my script.
Just making up numbers.
I'm really trying. We'll send you a Grimm sticker.
Until we say so, if you contribute at least $5, we'll send you a sticker. You just have to send me your address because I don't know where you live.
Yeah, but DM it. Be safe. Only send it to us. Don't post it anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, make sure you follow us on our socials. I'm back to my script.
Okay.
So you can stay up to date and check out episode pictures when we remember to post them. You can find us on Instagram at Grimm Crime Podcast and on Facebook searching Grimm, a true crime podcast. If you have a case suggestion, you can message us on any of those platforms, or you can send us an email at grimmcrimepodcast.com. No, my God, no, it's not. It's grimmcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Failing fast here. Wherever you do listen, please rate us, or even better, leave a written review. Thanks for being here, and listen, learn, and don't hitchhike. Stay alive until next time, because the future is grim.